2026 is upon us, and I think it's also going to be a pretty massive year for Aduro Clean Technologies, so let's make some educated guesses and see what we can expect during the year. The ticker symbol is ADUR, and I am an investor in Aduro, so my opinion will be biased, so please do your own due diligence before investing. Alright, we expect that the milestones are going to be in approximately 4 buckets, and this is just me, coming up with stuff. Nothing of this is officially announced by Aduro. It's just me speculating and doing some educated guesses. So the first pillar, I think that's pretty obvious. That's the pilot plant. So the pilot plant milestones that we expect to happen during this year is the completion of the pilot plant commissioning and the detailed yield results. So obviously the detailed yield results are going to be the most exciting ones. I'm going to see from all the different, plastic types, different contamination level, different partners, different, things. And we're going to see if the yields that we are currently expecting are the ones that we are going to get. So, roughly I would say something around 90% efficiency, maybe a little bit, maybe high 80s, something like that. We also expect that the reactor is going to work, let's say, flawlessly. We're not going to have long downtimes. We're not going to have like constant problems that we have to fix, etc. We just expect a smooth process, let's just say. Let's look into it a little bit more on the timelines. So in 2026, to make it a little bit easier, I've drawn some lines in. And here we're going to look at, this is more like, I'm just assuming this is how it works because it seems how it works, but we're looking here at the tip. So the commissioning is expected, like looking at this roughly as like end of Q1. We expect the commissioning to be fully completed, and after that, the majority of the year we're gonna have customer trials and scale-up optimization. So here, the customers are gonna send in their samples, and Aduro is gonna run them through the machine and tell them how it's converting, let's just say. It's gonna be a great year. I think we're gonna get lots of announcements. We don't know exactly how they're going to be structured, if it's going to be like one big batch of announcements or how Aduro has been doing it recently, like smaller announcements over time. So I think this year is going to be pretty exciting from the pilot plant perspective. We're also going to get the pilot plant environmental life cycle assessment. I think this is pretty massive, as you're going to see. This is a pretty big deal, I think. Let's dive into it a little bit. So in May 2025, Aduro announced that they're going to engage Delphi, a leading Canadian sustainability consultancy, to conduct a life cycle assignment of the company's HCT technology. So in short, what the LCT or the LCA is showing from start to finish how environmentally friendly the technology is, pretty much in real world conditions. So this is important for both certification reasons and marketing reasons, right? So you can claim, we have fully confirmed that this technology produces this and this greenhouse gases, is eligible for this and this many carbon credits. And obviously to get like subsidies or carbon credits, you kind of have to have this independent audit, let's say, of your claims. So this lifecycle assignment is we are going to assume that it's going to be in 3 steps. Aduro mentioned this in their press release, that they're going to follow these 2 ISO standards. I linked them in the description if you want to read more about them. It's not that interesting, I think. But it's pretty much just the standards of how emissions and energy use is measured. So in the first step, it's on a pre-pilot scale, which is what you would assume Aduro is currently at. Then the second phase is the comprehensive ISO compliant assessment. So this would assume it's going to be on the pilot plant. And it's going to incorporate the real data, so no simulations, no assumptions. It's going to be all the trials that we mentioned that are going to happen in 2026 for the pilot. It's like you run real feedstock through it, and then Delphi, who is the company who will run this, will very carefully measure all the energies that are used, all the products that are produced, all the inputs, outputs, etc. How many greenhouse gases are saved or produced or whatever. It's like all included in here. And the first and the third phase is going to be a comparison against all the other competitors, which is going to be pretty interesting from a marketing perspective and also from a regulatory perspective, right? Where you can go to a country and say, hey, compared to pyrolysis, our technology is X times better, needs X percent less energy, has these environmental effects, etc. So I think it's pretty great, and obviously also it will, how would you say, it obviously will give a seal of approval to all the products that you produce, that they are compliant with the standard, and that they're actually green, actually circular, and that you can actually sell them on the market as bio products. All right, I think that's pretty clearly, and I think personally this will be the major pillar during this year. So if all that we got was the pilot plant actually working and showing us real results, and that Aduro's technology can actually work on a commercial scale, even though like pilot plant is not commercial scale yet, but it's pretty much a very, very small commercial plant with things scaled down. Obviously, it will not produce profits, but it uses the same equipment, the same outlay. Everything's going to be the same as a commercial plant, pretty much just very, very small. But yeah, but not only that, we also have obviously the 3 other buckets, and I think the second bucket is also very, very critical and important, and this is the demo plant. And this is going to be pretty much a small commercial plant that's already like almost as large as a commercial plant would be. So the milestones that we expect with the demo plant is that the demo plant location decision and design completion are going to be done. Going to dive into it a little bit more. So Aduro has already, as of recording of this video, already signed a non-binding letter of intent to purchase a brownfield industrial site in the Netherlands. Brownfield means that, I'm going to explain it later. It's, yeah. So for 2 million euros, Aduro has the option to buy an already existing industrial site with industrial buildings, infrastructure, utilities, which reduces construction time and cost. So yeah, that's what was I saying. This brownfield industrial site means it's not an empty plot of land. It's already an existing building, has all the utilities connected, has also some industrial equipment already there. So that's going to massively speed up the process. Obviously, it also reduces costs, but I think the major factor here is that this makes everything way, way faster. Just great. And also, this prospective place has space for up to 25,000 tons per year, which is what Aduro and all their previous presentations and assumptions had assumed that this is the full commercial size. So it's pretty much like their like one full module of a commercial size. You can obviously build it smaller, but they assume that this is going to be like the base unit, let's just say. So and the final site decision is expected in January 2026, so towards the end of the month, and the closing of the transaction, if it were to happen, would be at by end of February 2026. And the current design status of the demo plant is that the design is currently in a detailed engineering and procurement phase. So we're already planning in exact detail, what equipment do we need, what sizes are they going to be, and starting to reach out to suppliers to procure the equipment that we need. All right, the next step that we expect to happen during this year is the start of the demo plant fabrication. And we expect that the demo plant commissioning might start by the end of the year or very close to it, or it might bleed into early 2027. We don't know that exactly. But if we dive into it a little bit deeper, we see this is what Aduro currently displays on their investor relations page. So again, if we draw like these lines here, and if we focus on the tip, obviously like I'm reading tea leaves a little bit, right? I might be over-reading this a little bit, but what we see here, we expect, or Aduro expects currently the commissioning start at the end of 2026. Now again, if you've been following the story for a little bit, there's sometimes a little bit delays, so maybe a couple months, maybe the commissioning will only start like in Q1 2027, maybe. But what Aduro shows here by this plan, that by, let's say, end of Q2 2027, commissioning will be done and we will start demonstration runs. And also this is likely, if they were to happen, we will see commercial agreements. So yeah, I think 2026 is therefore going to be more a transitional year, but I think also a very, very exciting year because we finally get to see the actual demo plant being, built, which is, a very major deal because this is like the precursor to the commercial plants. Yeah. So I think these are the 2 major buckets. The other buckets are like more like minor things, and that I personally come up with myself. The third bucket I think is more external validation. I don't have a separate slide on this, but because it's like very unclear what it might be, there are like tons and tons and tons of things that might be. It might be another collaboration partner. It might be commercial agreements. It might be more proof that the chemistry actually works. It might be Might be more analysts covering the company giving like high price targets. It might be more retail investors discovering it. It might be even like larger YouTubers starting to cover the company. It might be lots and lots of things, but it might be more confirmation that the technology actually works. Maybe we get to know more names of more collaborators, more, customer engagement programs, let's say, that Aduro has. Who are the companies exactly involved into it? Might also see more about the bitumen, which is their second vertical besides plastics upgrading, is their heavy oil upgrading. Might see more about that. It's really open. And the fourth one, which I personally just came up with, just like the future financial goals. Again, nothing of this has been stated by the company. It's just me guessing, let's say. And what I personally expect that Aduro will focus on achieving meaningful revenues in 2027, which is going to be from the demo plant. Now, I don't think that just with one demo plant that Aduro will be profitable. It might cover quite a lot of the expenses, but because they are going to use it for like demonstration purposes and testing with customers, etc. I think it will be meaningful revenues, but I don't think the company will be profitable yet, because I think the company should really focus on cash flow positivity by early 2029. This is like approximately where we would expect the first commercial reactors to come online. So as you might remember, commissioning of the demo plant is going to be completed by, let's say, middle of 2027. And if we assume like 1.5 years of construction, then approximately like early 29 is when the first commercial plants might come online. If the timeline holds, it might be earlier. It might be, a couple of partners might look at the pilot plant being completed in, let's say, Q1, Q2, probably like Q2 2026. A couple of partners might look at it and say, hey, that's enough for us. That's enough proof because it's commercial equipment. Let's just build a commercial plant right away. Or what I think is like the mainline expectation that I personally would expect it to be the most likely outcome is that the partners will wait for the demo plant to be fully commissioned. The first test results come in, and then the partner's going to say, okay, let's build a commercial plant. And by that, approximately like early 29, we will see the first actual profitable cash flows coming into Aduro's accounts. Again, this might be completely off, but that's what I personally would expect as of right now. All right, these were the 4 pillars which we expect definitely to happen. And now we're going to look at optional goals, which might or might not happen. And again, in these goals here, I personally don't expect to happen. But if they happen, this will be obviously great. And we're going to start with the goals which I would be the most excited about. Again, I don't expect those things to happen. But if they were to happen, I would be very, very excited. Let's start with the top. And this is obviously commercial agreements or licensing deals. I mean, this is what the company is working on longer term. This is what will turn the company from a couple $100 million market cap to multiple billions, maybe tens of billions, right? This is what we need to really see the returns in the stock price and in the performance of the company, and lots more interest by investors. So again, any type of commercial agreements, licensing deals, royalty agreements, maybe even joint ventures, something like that. All of those are going to be really, really exciting. And also, if we see another demo plant, again, I don't expect this to happen, but because Aduro is expected to build their first demo plant in the Netherlands, so in Europe. The second one might be in Mexico because the second collaboration is in Mexico. So this might be what's happening, or we get a bitumen demo. As you might remember, bitumen is the second vertical of Aduro. And if maybe one partner gets pretty interested to scale the technology up, we might also see maybe a pilot plant first for bitumen, but it seems also quite likely we might see a demo plant right away for the heavy oil upgrading. Now the second part, section, let's say, which I would be like medium excited about, is more collaboration agreements. Now obviously, it would be a pretty big deal if we saw more than, we currently have 2 collaborators, which is Total Energies and Ecose from Mexico. So more collaborators would be obviously great. Because we want people who want to go all the way to commercial, to commercial stage, which are what the collaborators are. And, as a third section, obviously it would be great if we saw more patents, more verticals, so not just Currently, Aduro has only really looked at 2 verticals quite closely, which is plastics recycling and heavy oil upgrading. They have a couple more verticals in the wings, like biofuel upgrading and like, let's say, rubber recycling, for example, or cross-linked polymers. But we might see maybe even more verticals, which would be exciting, I guess. But I don't expect it to really pay out in the short term. Maybe medium term, maybe long term. But yeah, again, I think those plastics and bitumen are the 2 main verticals. And obviously more institutional interest. So, if we are really optimistic, maybe we get included in some larger ETFs, maybe some smaller ETFs, maybe some fund managers start talking about the company. Maybe we get like a big buy-in from some big investor. We'll have to see. But I don't expect those things to happen. But if they happen, I would be pretty excited. So yeah, short and sweet, I would say. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys next time.